What if you were able to sit down for lunch with some of the greatest leaders in the world? What would you ask? What would they say? Welcome to the Linch with a Leader podcast, where you're invited to join us in learning the spiritual principles behind big success. Here's your host, Mike Linch.
How do you build a life of faithfulness? You do it day by day and night by night. Today, in this episode of Linch with a Leader, we're going to sit down with a great leader and find out not only how he has done it, but about the new book he's got out that will help you do it too. Well, if I've never met you before, my name is Mike, and it is my honor to welcome you on this leadership journey, as we're all seeking to be the leaders that we were created to be in the spaces and places that God has put us. Episode 231 is a great one because we get to sit down with someone who's done it. They've got a track record of doing it. Not only is Dr. Ronnie Floyd pastored a great church, Cross Church in Northwest Arkansas, but he's helped lead the Summit Business Luncheon, which has had over 100,000 business leaders come through during his years of doing it. He has a passion for those of you in the marketplace. In this new devotional that he has out will speak to you. It'll speak to your heart, and it's going to speak to your leadership. Dr. Floyd is somebody I've looked up to through the years, and it was such an honor to be able to sit down with him for this episode. So I don't know where you're listening from today, but I want you to do me a favor, and I want you to pull up a chair, and I want you to listen in to my conversation about day by day and night by night with Dr. Ronnie Floyd. Well, Dr. Floyd, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Linch with a Leader. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you, Mike. It's an honor to be with you, and I look forward to the conversation.
Well, you have been a gentleman that I have followed for years and years and years. You have been out in front of me on this journey. Right. Did you know growing up that ministry, and you pastored, and we've just talked about it on the intro, but you pastored one of the greatest churches in America for 32 years. Yeah. Did you know early on that ministry as a pastor would be something you would follow, or did you have a different career that you had picked out?
Yeah, great question. I was raised in Texas and really wanted to grow up to be the head football coach of the University of Texas, and then the Dallas Cowboys. And until recent years, I would say that they could have used me, but they're doing real well right now. And so I'm grateful for that. At least the Texas Longhorns are. And so with that, the Lord called me to preach when I was 16. And that kind of changed my mindset. I mean, I was really pretty set on being a football coach. I'm a fanatic football fan. And so with that, I, just began to preach in small churches. And, I was raised in a small church, 30 to 40 people. So, that's been my heritage. Had a bivocational pastor growing up. Was never exposed to a whole lot. I was in a small community, 5,000 people. It's what I grew up in. And, God's been good and done more, with me than I could ever think or imagine. So I'm very grateful.
As you think about it, being a football coach, being a pastor, there's a lot of similarities to that. What are some of the things that you go, I didn't actually get to walk in a locker room as the head football coach, but I got to do a lot of things that head coaches do. After looking back on your journey, what were some of the similarities between those roles?
Well, there is definitely a similarity. In fact, I have still a lot of football coaches that are good friends, and really thank God for them. I think really, first of all, leadership. It's that taking command without really trying to take command, just being who you are, standing up, saying, "Listen, guys, we're going to go out here and we're going to do this, and we're going to." As a pastor, we're going to take the community for Christ, and here we go. And that's what that football coach does when he says, "Hey, we're going to get out here today. We're going to do these three things. And if we don't do these three things, we're not going to have a good day." And so it's that kind of thing. It's coaching. Pastors are coaches and they're, do it in a spiritual realm, hopefully, but they're still coaches, and coaches many times, especially who follow Christ, they do it in a spiritual realm as well, even though they do it with the game of football. I have a son who's the head football coach of a large public high school in the Birmingham region and plays some big-time football. I mean, major football, 7A in Alabama, and I mean, it's awesome. I mean, it's like watching the SEC every Friday night. And so with that, I mean, I've seen the way God used him, and what the Lord has done with him. And so these guys have enormous opportunity. And just like a pastor does.
That's right.
They have enormous opportunity, and the question is going to be, what are you going to do with your life?
That's right.
And what are you going to do to shape people? And I think also the final thing of that I would just add would be the investment. We're investing in people, and that's what football coaches do, or basketball coaches, or whatever the sport may be. They invest in people. Last week, we had John Calipari, for example, here, who is the new head basketball coach at the University of Arkansas, and he spoke at a business person's luncheon that our church has. And, he talked about his whole thing in this was all about shaping the lives of those men. That was it. I mean, that was really what motivated him to do it, and he had to come to that, but he's come to that, and I think that's a tremendous thing that coaches have to do. They can literally take someone's life and reshape it and reset it forever, and that's what a pastor does through the power of God, especially in the gospel of Jesus Christ. When he invests in those people, he makes a major difference, and so those are a lot of the common denominators to me. And I'm sure there are more as well.
That is a fabulous answer. And being a sports nut, there's nothing like it, but yet there is a very similar vein in both of them. And you hit the word, both of them require leadership. You can have the title of head coach and not be a good leader. You can have the title of pastor and not be a good leader. Where did you learn to lead an organization like you led for so many years? Where did you learn leadership?
I think, Dad was a leader, was a door-to-door salesman. He and Mother both of them had great work ethic. Mom worked at JCPenney's in our town for years, and they worked hard. I think part of it was that. I think me being in the sports world really helped. As a high school student, junior high student, middle school now. And then I think just really through the years, really having a yearning and a learning for leadership. For some reason, God had given me some favor in that area. And before I knew it, I really, began to recognize it a little bit, humbly, not boastfully. And then I think when I really turned on in it, where it just went a different path beyond the growth of the ministries that I was a part of, is when I moved here. When I moved to Northwest Arkansas years and years ago, I was at the church for almost 33 years as a senior pastor. When I came, we started in a gym. Sunday, I would imagine we had 10,000, 11,000 people present on our 3 campuses. And we had $1 million budget when I came. Now we have almost a $30 million budget, I believe. So, and so with that, and I've been gone as the senior pastor for about 5 years, and that succession has been successful. And it was an intentional succession once I determined I was going to go away for a few years and take another responsibility, which I never thought I would do that. But I did. And so, but I think when I came here, I was 30 years old. Okay. Wow. I was a boy and, and started in that gym, but this region was pregnant with growth in leadership. I mean, I'm like right now, I'm about 8 minutes from the world headquarters of Walmart. There's also 12 to 1,400 companies that have presence right here to serve the Walmart account.
Wow.
Some of those companies may have 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 people here. Many of them might have 100 to maybe some of them may have 400 or 500 here. Okay, it just depends on how big, that account is. I'm also, about 7 or 8 minutes from the world headquarters of JB Hunt Transport, okay, which has trucks and all sorts of transportational modes all across the United States and beyond. And then our Springdale campus, which is about 20 to 25 minutes from here, is right down the road from Tyson Foods, which is the number one beef and poultry producer in the world. And then I'm about 25 minutes from the University of Arkansas here. So, with all that, this area, which was very small when I moved here, had just emerged. And now it looks nothing like it. And, and so you may know Jay Strike, who probably is a common friend.
Yep.
And, I remember Jay writing a book, something like, everything I learned about leadership, I learned in Florida.
Yep.
I could write that about Northwest Arkansas. What's happened here is a miracle. And it's, it used to be so remote. Not a lot of people knew about it. But now you can get to it. We have a national airport. Really, it's really a great place to live. And it's just, and the only way I know how to say it is, it's just pregnant with leadership. I looked around the other day at that leadership luncheon we had. We had, we had John Calipari, a very famous basketball coach in the world of basketball. We had over 700 people that came to that luncheon. I looked around, I thought, my Lord. And I looked around, there at my table was John L. Hunt, who is the widow of J.B. Hunt, who is a dear friend of ours. And, I could just go on and on and on about the people. And, one of the great things for me is that God had given me favor just to be with many of those people. And I think also I grew as they grew.
That's right.
Now, they were older than me by far, but I grew as they grew. And I was a real learner of leadership. And that's why when we started our Pinnacle Hills campus, which is in Rogers, Arkansas, which is, is about 5 minutes from where I'm at right now. And when we started that was 2001. We were one of the first churches in America to have a multi-campus church. I've been told it's about 200 at that time around the country. And when we started it, we started a business person's luncheon literally 3 weeks after we opened the door. And the first business person luncheon we had, Mike, happened to be on the Thursday before 911.
Wow.
911 happened, and I'm telling you, from then on, that business summit had the attention of people. And it's a tremendous platform. We fed people from all over. And I've interviewed some of the greatest leaders of the country and the world, from that platform. And so with it, I think that's how it happened. I just think it just happened. And, but again, I was yearning. I was wanting it. I wanted to be a leader. I wanted to make a difference with my life. I didn't know the term leader. I don't even want to say I would do it, but I wanted to make a difference with my life.
Yep.
And so with that, you're eager, you begin to learn, you begin to grow, you get hungry. And, when you get hungry, you better stay humble. And, and so I've learned a whole lot about it. Learned a lot of things probably in the wrong way, but learned a lot of things in the best way too.
What had to change most about you? And we have so many people listening to this podcast that may have been an assistant coach and they just moved to a head coach, or they worked at a school and now they're the principal, or they were in the police force, now they're the police chief. You got all these layers of people.
Right.
What had to change about you as a leader as the community began to grow and as the organization began to grow? What did you have to adapt to most and change in most?
I think two things. One was a work of God in my life, and that is the continual death to self. That whole element of pride can really mess you up. And obviously, the Lord did a work in my heart in all that, and still does a work in my heart in that. And I think that, and I believe really when it really comes down to it, Mike, I think the thing I would tell people and what I've learned, it's all about developing leaders.
That's right.
That's what I gave my life to. I mean, literally, when I look back, everything I did was about developing leaders. It would be every day, 4 or 5 days a week where I would go out to lunch with leaders, with people. I was always accessible. I would pour myself in people. Gina and I poured ourselves in our staff teams every summer for 32 years. And we would take them away for 5 days, 4 days. She would meet with the ladies. I would meet with the men and the women who served on our team in the church. And, it was just amazing. I mean, it was just, you just pour out, pour out, pour out, pour out. And before you know it, I'm telling you, it's a miracle what happens. When you wake up, you realize it's how God takes the seed and he just multiplies the seed. And you didn't have any intent when you were doing it other than just doing what you should be doing.
That's right.
But then, man, you look around and you go, this is a miracle. I could go through people here who lead this. And many of those people, they'd come to Christ. Many of those people, they began to grow. They were already with the Lord, but they began to grow, and we were able to, influence their life. And, they're prosperous. They're being blessed. And, I'm a very, very blessed man. And I have just seen the hand of God work in people's lives. And it's just been an amazing journey. And I'm really thankful for it.
Sam Chand in his book, Leadership Pain, talks about everybody will only grow to the threshold of their pain.
Yeah.
What was a pain that you walked through as a leader that when you sat in a seminary class, you never dreamed would come your way? What's some of the stretching that God had to do in you as a leader during those years?
Yeah, tremendous question. I would say, first of all, obviously when you are a part of any organization that grows, and people need to really listen to what I'm about to say. You can't carry everybody with you. You think you can. You want to, and you should try to, okay? But I was devastated when I knew somebody left our church or left our ministry because of this or that. Many times, I didn't have anything to do with it.
That's right.
Something was going on in their life. Maybe they went through some change in their marriage, or they did this or did that, or somebody on our staff team didn't do what they should have done, or, maybe I may have disappointed them. But it wasn't always about me is my point. And so leaders can't really be offended by that. You just have to learn and grow from that. That used to devastate me because I really do love people. I'm actually a pastor that likes people. And so, and I like to be with people. And so with that, I think it was that. And I think, when Gina was 35 years old, my wife, she had cancer. That was a devastating thing for us. We'd just been here about probably 5 years, right at 5 years, and 6 years, something like that. And she was diagnosed with cancer and, went through a year of all the treatment, radiation, chemotherapy, lost every part of her hair, went through a real challenging time, but God was faithful, healed her life. But, when you're in your mid 30s and, you have 2 little boys and here's your wife, and, that was a very sobering moment for me. And so I think that was a level of pain that really, I think it was that, quite honestly, like that really is when I became pastor of the church.
Wow.
I think it was through that experience when people realized that I wasn't just a guy that was preaching on television or doing this or doing out there with, a few thousand people, and they saw me in that big worship center that ended up getting built. And, you know how it is. I mean, people imagine things that really, I mean, they're not being evil. They just think, wow, he's not like me. I can't do that. Well, I am like them. I mean, I have my own stuff. And I think too, anytime you walk through something, even in a ministry or your profession, whatever you do, if you're in the sports world or healthcare world, I mean, you're all going to walk through times of change. And, you wonder, how can we make that change? Any of those kind of adjustments, those resets, we might say, they bring pain. I remember sitting in the old J.B. Hunt complex with Mr. Hunt. And I remember him taking out a piece of paper and looking across the table. He said, well, Ron, one thing about it is I have learned this. And he doodled, those guys, they take that and they'd, do this little, he'd say, I'm going to tell you what I've learned. Every time we need to go up in this company, everybody can't go with us. And I was probably, I don't know, I was probably 33, 35, maybe at the most at that time. So, I mean, those kinds of things were priceless for me. And I got to watch that. And I think also when you have, one of the things about this region is that while you have these power-packed corporations, it's not very big. It's not like Atlanta. I mean, it's not like Dallas. So when these things, when they hurt or there's adjustment, you feel it one way or the other. When they're exploding, you feel it. When the stock market's great, you feel it. I mean, there's all kind of that. Well, that's not, sometime in a major city with 3 or 4 or 5 million people, you may not feel any of that. I mean, you just drive by it. Oh, something's going on. But I mean, it doesn't impact. But I think watching that, experiencing that also really sobered me along the way as well, and always taught me to be wise, and it just did that. And I was never intimidated with great people being around me. I mean, these guys were on our board of leaders. They were, and I wasn't, if they didn't feel good about us doing something, I didn't do it. I didn't sit there and say, well, I'm the pastor. We're going to do this. I didn't do that. I mean,
that's why you survived so long.
I survived. I mean,
that's right.
The point is that, if you're not going to listen to the people around you, why do you have them around you?
It's an amazing thing when you pray for God to send business leaders and they send them, and then you don't listen to the people at what they're good at. And we're not good at it. I'm not a good business guy, but if they are, dear Lord, I'm not going to go against them. Absolutely.
That's right. And, every time I was willing to wait and back out on that, 6 months later, 3 months later, we were doing it.
That's
I mean, it's a matter of, a lot of it's about timing. It wasn't about them being against it. It wasn't about them doing any of that. And so, through all that, hopefully I answered your question.
Oh, that was fabulous.
It's just part of the journey.
Pain's part of it, and it shapes us and it makes us. We just wish we didn't have to do it. It's like all the work in practice, right? Yeah. You just don't want to have to do it. I just want to play the game.
Yeah, nobody wants to sign up for that.
No, and they do not.
And we don't want to sign up for that. And there are times in life when things don't work out. They really are. And I mean, I can't tell you how many coaches, for example, that that I walked with through some real challenging times. From being fired, from wondering, are we going to make it? What am I going to do? How am I going to deal with this? Whatever it may be, or business leaders who got cut because, they were 50 years old and, they were making a lot of money and, this happened, that happened in the corporation. And, I mean, it was, it's just, it's sort of, you walk with people, you will learn real quick. There's a lot of pain out there. And that's when, I always tried to step into people's life when they walked into those things. I wouldn't bother them a lot otherwise, but I would try to step in and at least let them know we're thinking about them, we're praying for them, and always was willing to sit down with them if they needed it.
I love that. You've got a brand new book out, and I think it's your 25th book, and it's a devotion, day by day, night by night. Why has this walk with Jesus been more to you than an occupation? Why has that time with the Lord been so valuable to you?
Well, thank you. I was asked to write this book, this 365 daily devotions. That's what they are. Now, I've contributed to devotional books, Mike, through the years for a week or 2 weeks. But I mean, this thing is, it's exhaustive. I mean, it's 365 days. That means 365 subjects that need to stand alone.
That's right.
In and of themselves. They all have a format, about 260 words on each page. It's a beautiful book. It's going to have a title. It's going to have a scripture. It's going to have an explanation of some of that. It's going to have a declaration you do through the day. It's going to have an application of what it means for your life and a prayer. You can divide that from morning and evening, or you can do it all at one time, which will take you about 3 to 5 minutes. And so with that, when they asked me, would you do this? And I said yes. Then I obviously did the math, and I thought, what in the world did I just agree to do? But did it and met their goal. And they asked me, do you know what you'd like to call it? We're going to need somewhat of a theme. And I said, oh yes. I said, about 18 months ago, 12 months ago, at that time, 18 months ago, I'd been through a real challenge and really I left Cross Church, went to help a large denomination that I loved dearly, and was only there just right at 3 years. And, decisions were made that made things a little challenging, and I didn't feel like I could lead effectively any longer. And so, I didn't ask for anything. I just left. I just said, hey, I'm going to give you all about 3 or 4 weeks here, and I stayed 2.5 weeks, got them ready. And, we departed. But I mean, I did that. I wasn't mad. I just did it. And, but I had no idea, Mike. I had never been any time in my life since I was a boy. I didn't have a title. I didn't have a staff. I didn't have a platform. And God has given me some enormous platforms, and he's given me some great people to work through the years. I had, several hundred staff members in this ministry here, with our school, with our church. I mean, it's a large church. There's a lot of things in it, and a lot of things that we were doing, and they are doing now. But the point is that, I just was literally devastated when I did that. It wasn't initial, but boy, I woke up and I thought, wow, because 2.5 weeks is what basically I gave them, and when I left, and I worked that whole time, very committed to that, because I really want their success, and so with that, I left, and Gina and I, we just trusted God, and there wasn't any promises of anything. I didn't ask for anything. I just did it, and so that was a great idea initially a little bit, but God really had to, really break me in that. And it just devastated us. And God taught me after just a few months, hey, Ron, I want you to start looking for the cloud in the morning, and I want you to start looking for the fire at night. And you need to understand, you're going to get through this, but you're going to do it day by day and night by night.
Oh, that's good.
And, that became the title of the devotional book. It's built on Nehemiah chapter 9, verse 12. And, but basically, God's used it greatly, Mike, because, as well as I know, as pastors, sometimes we think, we want our guys and our ladies out here and teenagers out here in our churches. We really want them to have a ongoing deep walk with Christ, and they really want that too, but they're very busy people.
Yep.
I mean, and I've taught them for years how to walk with Christ. But you know what? What I have found is that when people can do this, and 3 to 5 minutes, just 3 to 5 minutes a day, you know what it creates? It creates in them consistency. And people need the voice of God in their life. And I'm not God, but this has the Word of God in it, the Bible in it. And they need that. And, what they wanted me to focus it on a little bit, is really to tilt it toward leaders. So really the formal title is Day by Day and Night by Night, 365 morning and evening devotions for leaders. Right. Now, I believe everyone is a leader. Everybody doesn't have the gift of leadership, but I believe everyone is a leader because the bottom line is the number one person you lead is yourself.
That's right.
And you cannot lead anybody else until you know how to lead yourself. And one thing we can all do spiritually is lead ourselves under the leadership of the Holy Spirit and having the Bible in our mind every day and a scripture and a declaration and, just powerful, powerful stuff, and so that's what I've seen. And, I'm really thankful for it, and God's using it. It came out in the summer, and there's some great things happening because of it. And there are teams going through it. There are teams of businesses going through it. Families are going through it, because it gives them consistency. And as you can tell the people, because you have a copy, I mean, it's a beautiful book.
Beautiful book.
I mean, you can give it to, we gave it as a part of graduation gifts for seniors last year and put some money in it for guys and girls. And so, but the point is that it's a beautiful book. You can leave it on your desk. I mean, you're not going to be ashamed of it. I mean, it's a beautiful faux leather book, and it's class. It's easy to read. In fact, you're not even going to want to mark in it. How many people told me, I want to mark it, but I don't want to? I said, go ahead. It's yours.
That's right.
You need to go ahead and do it. And so, people can order it on Amazon. They can order it on Barnes & Nobles. They can order it on Christian Books or wherever they want to get it from. And the day they get it, they just need to go immediately that next day and just start that day.
That's right.
Just start that day. And I promise you, it will at least influence your life in a positive way.
We say this to our coaches. I was telling you earlier about our Pro Scout college baseball coach Bible study, and I had one of the guys ask me one time, how do I learn to do this? And we use the phrase, lock eyes with Jesus every day and walk towards him. And what I love about it is this book, this devotional series, helps you lock eyes with Jesus. And you talk about leadership. You talk about brokenness. You talk about courage. You break it up in some really bite-sized topics that the Bible addresses, and it gives us a way, no matter what our field may be, we all learn the same. The Bible has something to say about everything in our journey. In fact, when I was reading, and I believe I'm correct on this, March 10th was your parents' anniversary.
That's right.
Day. That was my parents' anniversary day.
Oh, wow.
And when I was reading through that, I lost them, but back in 2017, I think they were married close to 60 years. And, and I read that. And, there's just so many great principles. What did you learn most? You've been doing this for years. Right. What did you learn most with the task of having now to write these out? What did you learn that you didn't expect to learn in the process?
I learned that I don't have to go into too many words to really get the message out. It's made me be a better writer, quite honestly. It even in relationship to the way I articulate something, because 260 words, that's not that many words. It's about really, as I look right here today, it's really 2 major paragraphs, and so it's really that. And I think also I learned that it really does help people to have something they can declare, they can at least have in their mind, I look back at yesterday, for example, on yesterday's devotion on October the 14th of when we are shooting this today and recording this. But you look at that, I mean, I did it on total forgiveness.
Yep.
And I talked about the man who wrote that book and the book, but I mean, I really lifted up the principle of forgiveness. And, I mean, the declaration yesterday was, I will totally forgive and release others. I mean, that's what we have to do. People need to understand that the way you treat people matters. And to all of you out here as leaders, you need to understand that, not only for your family, but other people. And that affects your relationship with God.
That's right.
You can't set that aside and do that. I could tell you a story about a football coach that, said something to someone, and he's a, major, very visible individual, went through something and all that, and I mean, and it was that day. I mean, God just used that devotion on that day, and he sent it a picture and said, man, I really needed this. Tell your dad, thank you for this. This kind of a thing. And so, there are those days. And so whether somebody's a teenager, or whether somebody's a stay-at-home mom, or whether they're out here in the world of business, or they're retired, or they're, I mean, that's the thing I like about it, is it's so practical for whoever you are. And, I've really tried to keep in mind all the people in my life, all the people that I've listened to for years, that I've tried to help for years, and really just put it on the shelf for them. And I'll tell you, Mike, but God had to put me through a real challenging time to do that, and I'm really thankful for that. I don't necessarily like that, still, I mean, my life is a little bit still, trying to figure out my rhythm, because I'm used to the rhythms, and I've run pretty fast paces. And so every day is a little bit different. And so, but I'm, as I told you earlier, I mean, I'm totally committed to do whatever God wants me to do. One thing I've learned in the last few weeks is that, and part of it is, I learned it when I wrote this devotional. I really believe God's given me the spirit of Caleb in the Bible. That's good. Whatever that is, that whole element of, boy, I want that mountain. I mean, I've chased mountains for years. I've climbed them, and, I miss when I don't have that summit to reach. And, but God's got a timetable. God has a place. That's the other thing. God's always on time. I want to tell people today, wherever you are, I know you're impatient at times. I know you just can't understand why things are happening. Let me tell you something. God is always on time. Every time I've wondered, okay, now, Lord, come on, but I'm telling you, when God stopped my life for a few weeks and months, and I mean, I had some sad days, but God is saw me through. Amen. And it's seen me through. Was I depressed? I don't think I was really depressed. Maybe I was, but I was sad. Yep. I mean, but the point is not that. The point is simply, I just want to tell you what I've learned. It's all about waiting on the Lord and just trusting His time.
That's good.
There is a time and a season for everything under heaven. And what God says in His Word, He means. And that also means He means it for your life, and He means it for my life. And even for your career.
That's so good. Golly, that's so good. That is so good. Well, I want to say this. Yeah. I want to say this as we close today. Yes, you've been through the ringer, but you came out on the other side. And you're still walking, you're still hiking, you're still moving. And while you're doing that, you're leaving a trail. You're leaving a legacy. We may not know exactly what that next mountain is, but we know that He's got a new mountain for you. If I were to ever sit down with your boys, I know your family means a ton to you. And one day your boys were on this call, and I was sitting with the two of them, and I said, tell me about your dad. Tell me what and they're grown men now. You've got grandkids. What do you pray most your boys learn from you that they're passing on to their children?
Loving Christ, daily devotion, loving the church, and being willing to do whatever God leads you to do. One of my sons is the head football coach of the school I mentioned earlier. He's very committed to walking with Christ. His children do, his wife does, and is making a difference in the lives of people every day. My other son succeeded me here. And God is using him and his 4 kids and his wife. And, I remember praying and fasting 1 day a week for those boys for a couple of years when they were growing up, asking God, be sure you let them just grow up loving the Lord, loving the church, and ready to make a difference in their life in a massive way. And God's answered that, and God's been good, God's been gracious, and I'm very, very thankful for it.
The word I have for that episode, wisdom. Dr. Floyd has wisdom. And what a joy, not only to get to spend that time with him, to hear about his journey and how he has integrated this into his walk of leadership, but now he's left us a resource so we can do it. I don't know about you, but there's times I just need guidance. I just need someone who's out in front of me that leaves me something I can do. And that's what Day by Day and Night by Night is. We'll have information in our show notes about how you can get a copy and you can be a part of this great devotional. So good. Dr. Floyd, thank you for sharing your life, for sharing your journey, and sharing your story with us here on Linch with a Leader. Well, if you've enjoyed this episode, boy, if you'll leave a rating and review, share it with a friend, and always, man, the best way to never miss an episode is to hit subscribe on whatever platform you listen to. Well, episode 232 will not disappoint either. We'll be back with one of my favorite leaders out there, Dr. Dan Reiland. And Dr. Reiland and I get down in the weeds on leadership, and boy, do we have a great time spending time unpacking this topic and unpacking what God has in it for you. You're going to love my time with Dan Reiland. It is going to be a good one. So thank you again for listening today. Now, go be the leader that you were created to be in the space and place that God has put you. And let's love God, love people, and live sent. Have a great one, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Linch with a Leader podcast with your host, Mike Linch. If you enjoyed this episode, you can help more people hear it by subscribing and leaving a review wherever you may be listening. For full episode notes and more spiritual leadership resources, visit MikeLynch.com.